So holding my thumb on the sprocket, I'll just tighten that button up with my special pliers, and that should be all good. At the base of the camera now, I can tension up the film advance so we can get the film advance lever on here. So I'll swing the lock lever out of the way, hold back my release lever, advance this one full turn clockwise, drop both of those levers back in position. The film advance is now tensioned. I'll put this cover on with its 3 small screws. And I apologise for the ugliness of the screws, but believe me, these are the best ones that were here available for this job. Put our film advance lever in place. Let's see what we've got. Press down the release button, hold my finger on the lock lever here. Film advance moves smoothly, returns to the rest position. It's nice and smooth and snappy in its action. I think a couple of bits of body to go on here first. Tripod socket, rewind, and then I'll get this shutter release done. At the base of the camera, let's put this little bush in place. This is a guide for the base of your film cassette. And 3 screws hold this in position. And these screws are comparatively unmolested. So it may mean that I was the first person to remove those. And that'll stop the back from instantly opening as soon as I put my camera down on the bench. Here is the rewind. I'll put a smear of synthetic grease on the inner. It slides into the outer. It's keyed, as you can see. Some synthetic grease in the bush. Now I chose the prettier of the two. I don't know if it's otherwise good. That looks okay. Two screws. And while I'm here, I think the strap plug can go on the end. So far so good. Now the shutter release. Let's get here with this. So my shutter release consists of, what have we got, about 4 pieces. The shaft here, I'm just lubricating that with a bit of molybdenum paste. Doesn't need much, and I don't want great smears of it on there. And on that shaft we had a washer, spacer washer, and a spacer bush, and we have a return spring, so I'll slide that in there and get its return spring in position. Okay, so that's all sitting in position, and at this stage I need a rubber band across here to stop things getting away. The purpose of that is so that when I tip the camera upside down, the shutter release shaft doesn't fall out, the spring can't escape, and neither can this lever here. Next, the shutter cocking rack. Now, how smooth this will go is difficult to say. I think it's going to be okay. The teeth on this one look quite good after they've received a bit of attention. Drop that into position. It's coupled at both ends. And both of these clamp down plates were slightly bent. This one doesn't look good. Its mate was worse. I'm going to see if I can straighten those out. I've got no idea how they came to be like that. But it's not a good thing. Someone may have bent them up in order to increase clearance. That's not the way to achieve something like that. You normally use shims. I will try this. I'd like to say I'm convinced it's going to be great, but I'm not. And I appear to be short a screw or two around the place. We'll find out more about that later. And where is the shaft? There it is. Now there were 2 of these shafts which form the guide for the release button. One of them was bent all out of shape. This one's in better shape, but I wouldn't say it was wonderful. I'm just seeing if that will move. Something's catching. Oh, it's just the lock lever. If it's held down normally, it's moving fine. Well, that looks like that's moving smoothly. So I will put 2 screws in here. And the screw at the other end normally goes through the exposure meter, but I'm not putting that in place yet. And I don't know if I'm going to need shims under there. Yes, I'm going to need shims under there, because as soon as I tighten that up, that immediately stopped moving smoothly. Okay, shims. Let's start with one under here. What have I got? I'm just looking at these shims I've got here, and they all look like thick ones. I don't want a thick one, so I'm going to have to find a thin one from somewhere. Right, starting with my collection of washers, let's take a thin shim, put that under there. Put the screw back. Tighten that down. What do we get? Good action. Okay, what about when I tighten this screw down? Does it lock up? Yeah, it does. So I need a shim under here as well. And we'll try one. Right, with a shim under the second one, everything's moving smoothly. So that part's all looking good. I think the front door could go on next. I can see that the two front doors I had are not the same. One of them is certainly an earlier iteration. I'll show you the difference. This one here, this was the one that had the black paint on it that looked wet. That paint was something odd. It came off with naphtha. It was soft and gooey. I've got no idea what it was, but it was not good paint. See, this one's got a lot of concentric grooves around there. This door, by comparison, just has one concentric groove. This one with all the concentric grooves on it has got a number 1 embossed in it. And this one has got a letter I, by the looks of it, embossed in it. So I'm just going to inspect some of my cameras and let you know which one I think is the earlier. I have here a very early Retina IIIc, very early production indeed, and that one is different again. So it tells me nothing about which one of these was the earlier model. And if I've got another 3C I can look at. Well, this one here matches this one here. This is certainly a later camera. So I think this is the earlier door, but it's not a design that was used for very long. I'm not sure why they did that. It may have even been a flaw in manufacturing. It may not have been intended to look quite like that. However, we're using this door because it's tidier. So start with some grease. Yep, I've done that already. Just check the look of those struts to make sure they're not bent ridiculously out of shape. They look okay. And I want hinge pin screws and washers, spacer washers. I've got my hinge pin screws. And we have plenty of spacer washers. It's a thin one, thick one. I'll start with a thick one at the top. That normally is a good choice. This is just to take any rattle out, any rattle in the door if the clearance is a bit larger than expected. That's that one. And at the base, I'll try a thicker washer, see how that gets on. See if it'll go in. No, it won't. We'll try a thinner washer. It certainly went in fine. Why is that not going in smoothly? That screw does not want to go in all the way. It's not entirely evident why. Unless it's a wrong screw for the job. I'll have to find out, which means taking the door off. Covering my washers top and bottom. Let's look at this door. Why wouldn't that screw go in all the way? It starts. That went in all the way without any argument. What about its mate? Is there a problem with that? No. Oh, hang on. That doesn't go all the way down. It might not be threaded all the way. I'll find another one. I've got 2 cameras worth of screws here. We'll see if this one behaves any better for me. Yeah, that's better. I will condemn that screw. We'll just say that's one of life's casualties. And we'll use this one. Right, well, I'll get this door on. And then I'll have to consider my next move. And my next move in this case may be sorting out leatherettes, I suppose. The leatherette for the base, of course, is missing. And it's not going to grow back by itself. So I'll have to see if I've got what I've got to offer. Straight in, no problems. Right, the door opens and shuts. The film advance even works with the door closed. Now that's not always the case with cameras. If they've been damaged, the struts get bent. And effectively what happens is that when you close the front, they push the lens standard so far back into the mount that it rubs against the cocking rack and prevents it from moving smoothly, which of course would damage the cocking rack at this end if you're pulling hard at this end and it doesn't want to move at this end. So the answer is simple: do not crank your camera with the front closed, and that avoids that problem altogether. Right, so there we go, the camera body's back together minus leatherette problem. Well, I've got one. I don't know if I'm going to be able to rescue that. I'm going to go away and do some work. Well, it cleaned up quite well. There's various cracks and creases in it, but it's not too bad, and it's infinitely better than nothing at all. I think that'll be quite good once it's glued, and it's not even shrunk back as far as much as I thought it might be. So I've got my leatherette. So this I will just now prepare by making sure I get all the rubbish off the back of that, and then take off the film advance lever here and glue it in place. Well, it'd be nice to say it looked $1 million, but it sort of looks more like $10.50. But that's a vast improvement over no leatherette at all. So the body at this stage is ready as far as that can go. Now, what have I got to do now? Well, I've got to do the shutter, the rangefinder, and an exposure meter, and the top cover. Oh, it's hard to know where to start.